At the moment, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself emperor. France was still technically broke. The nation that now ruled most of continental Europe had spent the previous decade drowning in debt, chaos, and monetary collapse. Its currency had failed. Its banks had vanished. Its people no longer trusted paper money at all. And yet, within a few years, Napoleon would fund the largest armies the world had ever seen. PI soldiers reliably stabilized prices, crush rivals economically, and outlast monarchies that had centuries of financial tradition behind them. The twist is this: Napoleon didn't conquer Europe first and then fix France's finances. He rewrote banking itself to make conquest possible, and the financial system he built didn't just fund an empire, it quietly shaped the modern world. To understand how Napoleon rewrote banking, you have to understand the wreckage he inherited. Revolutionary France was not just politically unstable, it was financially ruined. Before the French Revolution, France already had a debt problem. Decades of war, especially support for the American Revolution, had drained the treasury. The monarchy financed itself through a patchwork of taxes, privileges, and borrowing that favored elites and punished everyone else. When revenues fell short, the state borrowed. When borrowing failed, it printed promises. Those promises were called assignats. Assignats were paper notes backed by confiscated church land. In theory, they were sound. In practice, the government printed far more than the land could justify. Inflation followed, then hyperinflation. Prices spiraled, savings evaporated, trust collapsed. By the mid-1790s, the assignat was worthless. People refused paper money altogether. Trade reverted to barter. Gold and silver disappeared from circulation. The revolution had destroyed the monarchy, but it had also destroyed the financial system that held France together. Banks failed, credit vanished, the state could barely pay its soldiers. And yet, France was at war with nearly every major European power. This is the paradox Napoleon stepped into. When he seized power in 1799, France was militarily ambitious, but financially fragile. The revolution had proven one brutal lesson. Political legitimacy meant nothing without monetary stability. Armies don't march on ideals. They march on pay, supplies, and credit. Napoleon understood this instinctively. Unlike many revolutionaries, Napoleon wasn't hostile to finance. He was hostile to disorder. And disorder, in his mind, began with unstable money. His first move wasn't a military reform, it was a financial one. Napoleon knew that printing money had destroyed trust. So he did the opposite. He restricted it. In 1800, he created the Bank of France. This was not a revolutionary institution in the ideological sense. It was deliberately conservative. The Bank of France was privately owned. Its shareholders were wealthy financiers, merchants, and elites, many of whom had survived the revolution by keeping their distance from radical politics. This was a calculated compromise. By involving private capital, Napoleon ensured discipline. By backing the bank with state authority, he ensured credibility. The Bank of France issued notes, but under strict limits. Convertibility into gold and silver was emphasized. Inflation was treated as an enemy of the state. This single move restored confidence almost overnight. Merchants began accepting banknotes again. Credit returned, trade stabilized. For the first time since the revolution, money worked. But Napoleon didn't stop there. He understood that controlling money supply wasn't enough. He needed predictable revenue, so he rebuilt taxation from the ground up. The old regime's tax system was chaotic and unequal. Napoleon replaced it with centralized administration. Land was surveyed, records were standardized, tax collectors were professionalized, corruption was punished. This mattered more than people realize. Stable taxation meant predictable cash flow. Predictable cash flow meant borrowing at lower cost. Lower borrowing costs meant sustained war financing. Napoleon wasn't just funding armies, he was engineering financial confidence. Then came the most controversial part of his system, war itself as a revenue source. Napoleon made his empire pay for itself. Conquered territories were not just politically controlled, they were financially integrated. Indemnities were imposed, contributions were demanded. Occupied states paid for French garrisons stationed on their soil. Looted art and treasure flowed back to Paris. Satellite states were forced to adopt financial reforms aligned with French interests. This wasn't random plunder. It was systematic extraction. Napoleon understood that long wars destroy treasuries, so he structured campaigns to be fast, decisive, and financially productive. Victory wasn't just about territory, it was about liquidity. This created a feedback loop. Successful campaigns funded future campaigns. Success reinforced creditworthiness. Creditworthiness lowered borrowing costs. Lower costs funded larger armies. But this system depended on one fragile assumption: constant victory. While Napoleon stabilized France's internal finances, Europe's financial landscape was very different. Britain, his greatest enemy, had already mastered a different model of war finance. The Bank of England issued debt. Parliament guaranteed repayment. Britain ran massive deficits, but maintained investor trust. Its navy protected trade. Its currency held value. Napoleon couldn't replicate this fully. France lacked Britain's deep capital markets and global trade dominance. So Napoleon pursued a hybrid strategy: fiscal discipline at home, extraction abroad, and tight monetary control. This worked until it didn't. As Napoleon's empire expanded, its costs grew faster than its revenues. Armies had to be maintained across vast distances. Supply lines stretched, resistance increased, extraction became harder. Occupied populations resisted taxation. At the same time, Britain adapted. Unable to defeat Napoleon on land, Britain fought him economically. The continental system was Napoleon's attempt to counter this: a massive embargo designed to cut Britain off from European trade. On paper, it was brilliant. In reality, it was disastrous. The embargo hurt Europe more than Britain. Smuggling flourished, revenues fell, enforcement costs soared. Allies resented France. Financial strain returned. Inside France, Napoleon doubled down on control. He tightened censorship, he pressured banks, he demanded loans from elites. He leaned more heavily on the Bank of France. This was the beginning of the breaking point. The Bank of France had been designed to limit political interference. But as wars dragged on, that boundary blurred. Napoleon needed funds faster than conservative banking allowed. Still, compared to his rivals, France remained remarkably stable. Inflation stayed low, the currency held. Soldiers were paid more reliably than in many opposing armies. This is often overlooked. Napoleon's greatest financial achievement wasn't expansion, it was endurance. But endurance has limits. The invasion of Russia in 1812 shattered the system. The campaign was not just a military catastrophe, it was a financial one. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers lost, equipment destroyed, supply networks collapsed. The cost was staggering and unrecoverable. For the first time, war stopped paying for itself. Confidence cracked. As defeats mounted, Napoleon's credit deteriorated. Allies defected. Contributions stopped. Tax revenues fell. Emergency measures returned. When Paris fell in 1814, France was not bankrupt, but it was exhausted. Napoleon's exile did not destroy the financial system he built. That's the most important part. The Bank of France survived. The tax system survived. Monetary discipline survived. Even the restored monarchy kept most of Napoleon's financial reforms intact. This is the quiet legacy. Napoleon failed as an emperor but succeeded as a financial architect. His system proved something revolutionary. Modern states could wage large-scale war without collapsing their currency. They controlled money, credit, and taxation ruthlessly. This lesson was not lost on future governments. Central banking, disciplined issuance, integrated taxation, and state-backed credit became standard tools of power. Fast forward to today, and the parallels are unsettling. Modern states fund wars through debt. Central banks stabilize currencies. Financial institutions are intertwined with political authority. Confidence is managed. Inflation is feared. Credit is weaponized. Napoleon showed that military power follows financial architecture. He also showed its limits. No banking system can outpace reality forever. When expansion stalls, costs surface. When confidence breaks, control weakens. 3 clear takeaways emerge from Napoleon's financial experiment. First, stable money is not a byproduct of power. It is a prerequisite for it. Second, financial systems reflect political priorities. Discipline lasts only as long as leadership enforces it. Third, empires rarely fall from bankruptcy alone. They fall when financial strain meets strategic overreach. The warning is subtle but urgent. Systems built to fund dominance often outlive the leaders who created them and can be used in ways never intended. The open-ended question is this: if modern states rely on financial mechanisms pioneered during empire building, are we repeating Napoleon's model or approaching his breaking point? If this deep dive helped you see history, banking, and power as parts of the same system, consider subscribing for more explorations into the hidden mechanics that shape empires past and present. Because the real battles are rarely fought on the battlefield, they're fought in the balance sheet.